Okay, good morning everybody. So my name's Alex. If you haven't seen me around before, I'm Leader's National Trainer. Predominantly look after Ubiquiti training, although we are fleshing out more training programs, so watch this space. So today I want to be chatting to you guys about Ubiquiti and specifically the Protect range, which is obviously part of Ubiquiti's surveillance solutions. And we want to essentially see how Protect slots into the Ubiquiti ecosystem, what the advantages are of having a combined ecosystem, and basically we're just going to be doing a rundown of Protect. So to get started, I think it's a good thing to just get an overview again of how everything slots together. I always like to start on these two slides. Mainly it just gives us a quick insight of everything that Ubiquiti does as an ecosystem. So for Ubiquiti's ecosystem, obviously the component that everyone knows and loves is the network side of things, so access points, switches, etc. You guys have some access points scattered throughout the building here as well. So I think most people are very familiar with the networking side of it. What we find is a lot of people naturally gravitate towards stuff like Protect and the rest of Ubiquiti's ecosystem because it's a nice closed ecosystem. I don't like to use the words closed because it implies that you can't integrate with anything else. And that is kind of true to a certain extent, but it's done on purpose. So Ubiquiti prefers to have their cameras and the rest of their solutions integrated and very tightly knit for the sake of speed. So, sorry, I'm just going to go one slide back here. My timing's on. So essentially, the Protect range is Ubiquiti's surveillance solutions. A whole bunch of cameras that we're going to discuss today. We also have the access products, which we've done training on previously, basically for access control. And then a new entry to that as well is the Talk side of things. So Talk is VoIP solutions. So Talk is coming to Australia. We are currently working on the integration. So hopefully we'll have some news around that as well. Some of the other stuff that people don't necessarily associate with Ubiquiti is, for example, the digital signage solutions. So PoE powered displays. The idea behind that is you can have digital signage in places where it would be really hard to have normal power. And they also have mobile routing solutions. Ignore that picture that's on there. So Ubiquiti has a new mobile routing solution that's becoming available shortly in Australia, fully certified across all the bands. We've tested it, works wonderfully. I've used it while I'm out camping. It's a really good device. And it's basically 4G LTE support. Ubiquiti is kind of waiting to see how it pans out with 5G and where they want to fit into that solution, but they are looking at 5G solutions as well. And then in terms of EV chargers, so they do have 2 EV chargers at this stage. It's basically a light version, which is smaller than this one, and a full-fledged version, which is the normal EV station. The light version was only launched yesterday, so it's a very new edition. And essentially it slots into the rest of the portfolio. So I'm going to just quickly give me 2 seconds so I can turn off slide timing here. Sorry about that. There we go. So that's the entire Ubiquiti ecosystem. That's how everything fits together. Everything is a Ubiquiti device. They are very good at building entire solutions. And obviously a big component to this as well is the Protect side of things. So surveillance, access control, surveillance, etc. are the very common things that you would see in a business. So Ubiquiti, again, they're not like other brands where you have a million different flavors of relatively the same thing. They have a very consolidated range of cameras, which makes it nice and easy to stock. So you don't have 5 million different SKUs, and this one has 2 megapixels, and that one has 3 megapixels, and the next one has 4 megapixels. I'm personally quite tired of that. And then you go to the customer and they're like, I don't care. I just want a camera that can look at my driveway. So Ubiquiti doesn't have a million different SKUs for that. They make it nice and easy. So Ubiquiti really tries to focus and emphasize on having a complete ecosystem where everything ties back together. So with that said, Ubiquiti does not support other brands on the surveillance side of things. You can't take a Hikvision or Dahua or something camera and stick it onto Ubiquiti NVR. I know for the guys that have done a lot of CCTV, it kind of seems like a downside because OnViv support is pretty omnipresent at this stage, but it is done on purpose. So OnViv is very good for compatibility. What it's not great at is speed. So there's a lot of kind of gateways, or I don't know what the right word for it is, but kind of layers that you have to work through with OnViv to enable support on your product, which typically slows down the process and introduces a lot of network complexity. So to me, it's a pretty good thing that Ubiquiti does not support OnViv, because it means the solution is a lot faster, and we'll see what we mean with that as well. Ubiquiti also is capable then of doing a lot more traffic control. So they can much better handle how that traffic is flowing across your Ubiquiti network, and they can much better control the impact that it has on the rest of your network. So for example, if you have a lot of data traffic for your PCs and stuff going across this network as well, you don't want the cameras to impact that. And it's a very real problem that most people struggle with. Ubiquiti do some Ubiquiti magic in the back end there to make sure that that's not a thing. You still have to set up VLANs, etc., to separate out the networks, but for the most part, it's very straightforward. So another consideration is just the speed of accessing your video footage. It's a very common complaint that I get from people using third-party solutions. They go, hey, we're trying to look at this event, it happened, and when they try to scroll through their app or through the browser or through the NVR, it's always this laggy process where it's like, okay, cool, I want to record from this second to that second, and it's like, it's hours of scrolling to get to the right place, and then when you get there, it's really difficult to export the right thing. Ubiquiti is completely different in that regard. They make it a lot easier. So OnViv introduces a lot of complexity, and the good thing with Ubiquiti is that it's not a thing that they have to worry about. So it's all integrated into a single solution. There's no separate interface, no separate web page that you have to go through. You don't have to log into a separate device. You don't have to remember the usernames and password of that NVR. It is part of the same ecosystem and solution that you have in Ubiquiti already. So it's literally just a tab at the bottom. So you log into the Ubiquiti controller or the NVR as normal. You click on Protect, and it's just there and it's available. The good thing from the IT administrator side of things as well is it's nice and easy to reconcile, because a very common problem is, okay, I've created a camera network, but I can't remember what the IP address assignments are on the camera network. Then I have to log into the NVR. It's like, this is on the 192 range, but the rest of my network uses the 10 range. How do I manage all of this? With Ubiquiti, because it's all in one device, it just makes things so easy to jump between the corresponding interfaces and make it really easy to access stuff. And that's the interface. I mean, it's nice and clean, it's modern, especially if you're comparing this to a lot of the older NVRs. This is a complete departure from that. I used to always get stuck in NVRs because the interfaces are so old that it's difficult to navigate. With Ubiquiti, again, they update it frequently, and it follows the same design logic as the rest of the Ubiquiti product range. And ease of access and ease of control is very important, especially when it comes to your cameras. So one of the things that we've seen is a lot of the other brands might even have good interfaces. So they have a nice clean interface similar to this, but they lack a lot of consistency. So the features might work, they might not work. Ubiquiti kind of follow the ethos of it just works. They very much have that Apple mindset where they try to make sure that everything that you see works. And they do that through very frequent firmware updates, and they make it as easy as they can. So with this, Ubiquiti puts the control of the camera side of things into the hands of the IT administrator. You no longer need to have a separate reseller that handles just the security component. The IT manager can manage everything. So with Ubiquiti, the app or the mobile device app is probably the primary place where most of your setup and viewing is going to happen. And if you think about that, that's the easiest device to use. Your mobile phone's always handy. It's nice and easy to, if you need to quickly see a video of something that's happened in the store, then you can very easily just open up the app and quickly pan through it. And that looks like it's post-processed or done with video effects or something like that, but it's not. That's the actual scrolling and timeline of that. So it's super fast, very responsive. You literally just scroll through to the footage you want. And then when you want to export this video footage, you just click on the clip to export and it exports it. Done. No longer do you have to take your mobile phone and record the screen, because that's easier than actually exporting the footage. It is all just built into the app, baked into it. It's very nice and easy. It's also something that Ubiquiti is immensely proud of, and they have the right to be, is just the speed of scrolling through the video footage. Again, on a lot of the other brands, it's very choppy because the hard drives that you're using are typically 3.5-inch drives, and they don't like to go backwards and forwards very rapidly. So that mechanism for doing that is very unique to Ubiquiti, and it's very well done.
So it still takes normal size hard drive?
Yeah. Yeah, so you could, so you can do either or. So depending on the NVR that you go for, if you're going for a cloud key, which is a smaller form factor, then you can stick a SSD into that. Alternatively, the normal NVRs just use 3.5-inch drives. So any 3.5-inch, or if you want to adapt it down to SATA or something, solid state or something like that, it should be possible as well. So they don't really care what the drive type is as long as it fits into the tray. And it's pretty good at how it handles that. So normally you'd get a lot of chop in video with 3.5-inch drives. With this, that doesn't exist. So just talking about the speed of setting up the devices, Ubiquiti is very good at local discovery, which means basically if you're connecting that camera on, it should automatically go find the camera. So I've been through that era where you have to, when you're setting up the cameras, every camera has the same IP address. So what you do is you take one out of the box, go change its IP address, go find it on the NVR, and then assign it. That's a really painful process. With Ubiquiti, it doesn't matter. You can take all of your cameras, mount them to the roof, wire up the cables, route them back to the NVRs, and then when you're good to go, device discovery just automatically happens. You don't have to worry about conflicting IP addresses and all that stuff. It's just literally a tap of a button. You go adopt, and the device essentially gets associated to the NVR, and it stays provisioned to that NVR. So any changes you can make in bulk. You can apply to many cameras once, or you can apply to a single camera if you wish. We can also set up granular access levels as well. So a very common thing that we see is a technician goes out to site, he does the initial installation, he adopts the cameras into the controller, but then after that, we don't want that technician to have continuous access to the camera. We want them to do the initial setup, and that's it. So a lot of businesses are very closed with that. They don't want outside people to have the ability to see what's happening in their business or on their cameras. And with Ubiquiti, you have very granular control over that. You can say that the technician, once he's done the setup, no longer has access to any of the cameras. You can even now do remote handoff as well. So as soon as the technicians check that the focus is correct and it's facing the correct direction, he can just do remote handoff, and another administrator can take it from there and do the fine tuning, connect it to the network, etc., etc. So it is an extremely easy way to get your cameras added. It's literally just adopt, and that's it. It pushes through the settings of your network. It pushes through all the settings you've applied in advance, and it's really simple to do that. So it's auto discovery, super easy, and gives us very granular control for that access as well. So of course, Ubiquiti also have AI in their cameras as well. I think AI is kind of the buzzword, and I think most people are pretty sick of it at this stage. But with this, Ubiquiti use the AI for multiple applications. And specifically, it's to alert you of some events. So I'll be 100% honest and say Ubiquiti is not the first or best when it comes to AI. They have very limited AI capabilities, but it's done on purpose. Ubiquiti doesn't do these million different types of AI variants where it's like, oh, this one can pick up vaping in schools, and this one can do hard hat detection at work sites and stuff like that. It's like, it's a very small cross-section of people that actually require that. So what they focus on instead is the stuff that people use day to day. So stuff like normal motion detection obviously is a very important thing. And then also stuff like person detection. So if you're in a space where there's lots of movement, but you want to be alerted if a person goes into that space, it does that. So I can think of stuff like mining environments where there's a lot of moving machinery and there shouldn't be anyone in a specific area. It's a very good device for that. It will alert you. And that block that you see around that person, I know that also looks like post-processing because it's never that smooth. It is actually that smooth. That is the actual recording of the person moving and the vehicle. That's how quickly it tracks it. It is extremely good and extremely accurate at that as well. It also does vehicle detection to tell you if a vehicle's in a certain area or if a vehicle's been picked up. It does license plate recognition now as well. I am constantly shocked that Ubiquiti is able to provide license plate detection or license plate recognition without a license charge. That's a big thing, especially if you're looking at competing solutions. They normally charge you a fee for license plate recognition. And it can be very expensive as well. So it can even do stuff like smoke alarm detection. So if it picks up on the audio side of things that there's a smoke alarm going off or a CO2 sensor going off, it can alert you as well. It does motion zone, so you can set where you want the motion. It does cross-line detection, and you can set privacy zones as well. So that's the entire AI feature product stack. It's not a million different AIs. It is just a very simple focused set. I also just need to mention here that these AI features are not universal across the entire range. Some of them have more AI features and some of them have less. The AI processing predominantly gets done on the camera. So some cameras have more processing power and others have less. So if you're trying to figure out which ones to use for the AI features, if it has AI in the name of the camera, it's a pretty good indicator that it has the AI feature. So they've got like the AI Pro, stuff like that, that will have that core functionality. But others do have some functionality as well, depends on your needs. They also do heat mapping as well, which is a very popular thing in retail spaces. Forgot to mention that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Question about the adoption.
Yes.
After it's adopted,
Yes.
how easy is it to remove it from that recorder?
Just as easy. So literally you just go into the device. So it'll be displayed on the interface as normal. And when you want to remove it, you click on it, click on the icon of it. And in the settings right next to it, you have the button at the bottom that says remove. And it basically factory resets that device and it takes it off the system. It is a lot easier than a lot of the traditional systems that a lot of people are used to working on. And they make it nice and easy. So one place that I want to call out the speed of the actual interface and the speed of controlling devices is specifically on the PTZ. So a very common thing, if you've worked with a lot of pan-tilt zoom cameras, a very common thing is the latency is a problem because you'll use either the joystick or your phone or something like that, and you'll tap on a spot for it to go to, and then you have to wait a couple of seconds and it moves there, and then in the interim you've already missed what happened, or you didn't quite move to the correct spot, so you need to move back slightly, but then there's another couple of milliseconds delay, so it's a slow process. With Ubiquiti, the actual panning and tilting is 100% spot on. It feels instant. I've never been in a solution where I thought, I went too far, or I didn't go far enough. It is, as you're mapping it on the controller, or as you're mapping it on the phone, it is there. The PTZ is moving around.
Is that dependent on being on a network, or is that through just...
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've tested it both through local network and through the Unify portal. I haven't been able to get it to the point where it has so much latency that I notice it through either method. Obviously, being local will have an advantage because there's much less latency, especially if it's on the same Wi-Fi network and stuff like that. It will be faster, but from my own personal experience, I've never noticed it becoming a problem. We have 3 of these cameras set up at our leader offices in Adelaide, and we use them extensively and we've never had issues with latency. And that's a big thing. Like I've worked on shopping centers and stuff where they have a ton of these in parking spaces, and just the ability to move around and pan and tilt, etc., is very tedious. So it's a very good thing. So another big concern, especially now that we're seeing, is a lot of people are focusing on where their data is going. So you've all heard of the recent leaks and stuff where some video footage got stored in the cloud and then people were able to access that cloud. Well, that's not Ubiquiti. So Ubiquiti, essentially, they focus very heavily on privacy. So they have the video footage stored onto the NVRs on premise. So essentially, when you're buying one of these NVRs, you slot in your hard drive into the bays and it all gets stored locally. So you don't have to worry about privacy concerns. You don't have to worry about where your data is getting uploaded to. It is all stored locally. That being said, you can access the video footage through the cloud if you wish. Alternatively, if you're a very secure site and you do not want that, you don't want people to access it through the cloud, you can turn it off completely. And Ubiquiti will actually cut the connection to that NVR, that device, so you cannot access it remotely. And that's an option as well. It also begs the question, why do we use cloud for video footage storage in the first place? Well, there's a couple of good reasons for that. Obviously, we only have so many drive bays in these devices, so it might be a good thing to offload some of that video footage to the cloud. And with Ubiquiti, you can now do that as well. So they've added a lot of functionality around that. They now support the ability to upload to Google Drive, OneDrive, and they will in future support SharePoint as well. So you can just take the footage and dump it somewhere secure in the cloud if you wish. So by default, it doesn't get pushed through to the cloud, which I personally love as well. So another common concern or another common thought is, how do I handle scale? So scale is a big thing. You obviously want to have a fair amount of cameras and fair amount of NVRs, and Ubiquiti does support stacking as well. So you'll see they have a ton of NVRs showing up on screen here, and they can now have the ability to stack them. So you can take two NVRs and basically combine them into a single device. It appears as though it's a single device, even though it's got multiple drive bays. So for example, you can take two of these with 4 or 7 or however many drive bays and combine it with another NVR. So from a management perspective, you see it as one thing. The benefit to doing that is that you can also have, in addition to more storage, you can also have more processing power, which means more connecting cameras. So it is to your benefit to do stacking as well. Another feature that Ubiquiti have just added on is something called Vantage Point, which I'm going to show to you in a second. So stacking is a really important feature, especially in enterprise segments. And this is Vantage Point. So speaking under correction here, this was launched either yesterday or the day before. It might still be an early access feature, in which case I'm not really allowed to talk about it, but we'll talk about it by the time this video gets published. Probably most of the people will have access to this already. So Vantage Point is basically the ability for you to take multiple NVRs and combine it into a single view. So all the NVRs are still doing their own processing, they're still recording to the cameras, etc. They function as independent NVRs, but you can take 3 NVRs, combine them together, and grab the views from the cameras in one universal point. So if you combine that with stacking, potentially what you can do is, let's say you have 20 cameras on one NVR, you can stack that NVR, so you make it 2 NVRs 1, and that basically gives you 40 cameras. And then now you can take up to 3 of those NVRs and combine them together. So potentially it's 40, 40, 40, so 120 cameras theoretically that you can have across that. This is all theoretical still. Vantage Point is something that I really haven't had time to test it yet, but that is the theory behind it. Ubiquiti will expand this out. We were in a meeting with them yesterday, so they said they will add support for additional NVRs in future. It just means you can look at a lot more cameras and you don't have to jump between NVRs to do it. So let's say, for example, you have a bunch of KFCs and you have them scattered throughout, let's say, South Australia, and you want to see from all of those KFCs a couple of critical views. You want to combine it into a single place. Obviously, each KFC will have their own individual NVR, but you want to view it as an overview. And that's exactly what Vantage Point will allow you to do. It's a very new feature. As I said, take it with a pinch of salt. I'm still unsure exactly what the limitations are. Ubiquiti haven't published the documentation around this yet, but it will be something moving forward. So speaking of viewing the cameras, another very common thing that we have to do is we have to set up a PC to view all of these cameras. If you have a guardhouse or something like that, it typically means that you have to get a PC set up in that guardhouse. You have to set up a monitor. And then there's concerns around that as well. So what happens if the security guard accidentally switches off the PC? There's a lot of consideration around that. How do you power it, etc. Ubiquiti have the little viewport here, they call it. So viewport is essentially, the easiest way to think of it is like a Ethernet to HDMI converter. It just gets normal Ethernet with PoE in on one side, and then on the other side, it's just got an HDMI port. And that HDMI port connects directly up to your television, whichever television it is, doesn't matter. Or even if you have a massive digital signage solution, you can do that. And then essentially you can display the Ubiquiti cameras directly on there. I love this, especially because it limits what you can do on that device. You don't have to worry about the security guard installing Angry Birds and playing that for the whole evening and not looking at the cameras. You have very limited app availability on this, and it's purely focused on displaying the video footage. They are not the most cost-effective thing on earth, but you get what you pay for. It is also very good in terms of how many video streams it can actually process. So it can actually do up to 16 video streams, so you can view up to 16 cameras at full resolution as well. It outputs at 4K, 30 frames per second. It's a very, very good device for that. So it's a very unique tool. I don't think any other manufacturer has anything like this as well. So as an alternative to that, if you're wanting to view the Protect video footage on something that is not the viewport, Ubiquiti have the Protect app available on both the Apple Store as well as the Google Play Store as well. And what's cool about this, and I have mine set up like this at home, I have an Apple TV, and on my Apple TV I just installed the Unified Protect app. So if something goes bump in the night and I want to quickly have a look at what's happening, I don't even have to take my phone out of my pocket to look what's going on. I literally just go, pause my video. If I'm watching YouTube, I'll pause YouTube, quickly switch over to the Protect app, and I'll see what's going on outside. That to me is very cool. And again, it's not something that I've seen in any other manufacturer where you just have this on the Apple TV, or you can, even if you have an Android TV box or an Android TV, you could potentially install the Unified Protect app as well. Depending on the TV or media box that you have, you might need to sideload that app, but it is there. It exists. It's a very cool thing for navigating. On Apple, it's very polished. It's very nice and easy to do it. Obviously, it doesn't have to be on a TV box. It can be on your mobile phone. It can be on a tablet. It can be on pretty much anything that supports it. So it says iPad, iPhone, Apple TV, and then Android's Android. So pretty much anything can run that runs Android.
So it's all good to put that app on the TV if it's got Google or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah, it should. So so if you have like an LG TV or something like that, it typically has a very limited library of apps that you can install, because LG will validate those apps before you're allowed to install them. But with Android, if it's an Android TV-based operating system, you can sideload it. So you just download a sideloader and take this app and install it. And I've seen this work thousands of times. It works very well. It's intuitive. You can navigate between the cameras. It is very, very good. So alternatively, if you just use the mobile app, that's also an option. Like I said, the majority of installs will probably use the mobile app for first-time setup. for viewing, etc. as well. It can also be done through that mobile app.
So you can adopt the cameras and that through the mobile app?
Yep, 100%. To me, I've done a lot of installs. One of the big pain points that I always face when I'm the tech having to align the cameras is having my laptop with me, because then you're on a ladder, you've got a camera on one hand, your laptop in the other hand, and you're trying to do the alignment and making sure it's in focus and all that stuff. It's really painful, especially with the laptop. So with the mobile app, you don't have to take your laptop with you. You can literally set up the camera, point in the correct direction, take your mobile phone out of your pocket and go, okay, cool, this is the view. I'm going to switch it around slightly, but I have way more mobility to do that. I click adopt, I can push through new settings, everything while I'm on the ladder. Or alternatively, if I have someone in the control center that I want to hand off to, I just handle the initial setup and then I can hand off after that. To me, it's an amazing tool for that. You don't need any special tools. It saves you a ton of time in terms of setup. It is a fully featured app and you have very granular control as well. So you can say, for example, that the tech only has access to that one camera that he's setting up. It doesn't get access to the rest of the cameras, or whichever way you prefer to do it. So let's start taking a look at the devices that control all of the cameras before we actually start taking a look at the camera models. So the most logical thought would be I need an NVR. With Ubiquiti, it's kind of, yes, you can use a NVR, but it's kind of not necessary for most people. Most businesses will start off with a controller. So something like the Dream Machine Pro, Pro Max, or something like that, which is their cloud gateway, as they call it, but basically it's a controller. It controls your network, it controls your cameras, it controls access, it controls all that stuff. And this would typically reside somewhere in your server room. You'd connect it up to your access points to control that, your cameras for security, etc., etc. This is a very powerful device, and it's very good for businesses starting, because you'll sell them one of these things and you go, okay, we've sold it to you for networking and for your access points. And then they go, okay, 6 months down the line, we want to add cameras to the business because we had a theft issue. And you go, okay, cool, we can just use the same Ubiquiti device. We don't need to put down an entire NVR. It is already supported. And then you bolt on the cameras and you bolt on the access control, etc. This is the starting point for most businesses. And it's what I recommend that you guys sell the most. Instead of trying to go for an NVR straight off the bat, we normally recommend this. The other reason for that is it can do stuff like function as your gateway. So it can be, it can connect to the internet. It can do your firewall, your antivirus to a certain extent. It can do intrusion protection and detection, etc. It can do all of that directly from this appliance. There's obviously a limitation on this as well, because firstly, it's a shared appliance. In other words, it has to do the processing for the firewall and it has to do the processing for the cameras, etc. So it uses a lot of processing power to do that. So it can't take quite as many cameras, but it's a good starting point. And also in terms of the number of hard drive bays. So only 2 on the largest model currently, which would be a limiting factor for a lot of businesses. The theoretical way to do this would be take the largest drive you can get, 18 terabytes, and mirror them so that if one drive fails, you just have a backup of it. That's the best for that. Alternatively, if you want to expand this out and have a dedicated NVR where the processing and the storage happens on this dedicated appliance, that's also very possible. Ubiquiti sell a range of NVRs. They are about to add on another very high-end NVR as well for larger businesses. More news to follow on that shortly. But as you can see, you can manage up to a fair amount of cameras here. So if you're looking at normal 1080p cameras, it's about 60 of them. It's a fair chunk. Take the numbers with a pinch of salt again. Ubiquiti has a resource calculator on their website. Rather use that to figure out how many cameras you can stick onto this. The main consideration points typically how many cameras you can have and how long you want to store the video footage for. So both these fit into, I'd say, 80% of the solutions. If your customer just wants something small, just as a home use, need 2 or 3 cameras that they want to record, The Cloud Key Plus is also a very good device for that, and it comes with the 1 terabyte drive built straight into it. Don't have to buy it separately. So as a quick, easy deployment, you can have up to 7 4K cameras on that device. It's nice and easy. Looking at the actual cameras, we're not going to drill down into a million different specifications. All the specs are on Ubiquiti's website. They're very good at that. I also want to call out their tech specs website. So if you have any questions, or if you get someone coming in and says, hey, does that camera support that ability? It is all on techspecs.ui.com. It's a very good website for that.
So just a question about connecting the actual cameras
Yes.
to the network. Can you connect them straight to that cloud thing, or do you need a PoE switch?
PoE switch. So the controller has a couple of ports on them. So they typically have like 8 ports or something like that. On some of them, they do support PoE. So you can do up to, I think it's 6 PoE cameras directly on the controller if you want to. But for the most part, you'll probably put down a PoE switch. It's a good question.
So even if you do a couple cameras, you probably still use it.
Yeah, even if it's just a if it's just a small PoE switch, that's fine as well. You don't have to go for full 48 ports enterprise switch or something like that, as long as it gives PoE. Or alternatively, if you have a regular switch lying around somewhere that you want to purpose for this, you can just buy PoE injectors. They are very cost effective, and they work. They're just not neat, because then you'll have like, let's say you have 30 cameras and you'll have 30 PoE injectors just sitting in your server room. So they're not a neat solution, but they do work, and they're nice and cost effective as well. I think the break-even point between a switch and PoE injectors is like, as soon as you need more than 20 PoE injectors, it's cheaper to buy a switch. So, as a point of consideration. On the form factors, again, I'm not going to get into the individual specs here, but Ubiquiti have cameras, the traditional bullet-style cameras as well. Probably the most popular. You guys will have sold a million of these types of cameras throughout the years, I'm sure of it. And very popular for use indoors, outdoors, very flexible in terms of use case. Ruggedized, they can take a beating. They are good in weight, or pretty much any weather. They are very, very good devices for pretty much general use. Ubiquiti are making a big shift where the majority of their devices are now 4K resolution, because that's what the native resolution of our TVs are, so it makes sense to go with that flow. Ubiquiti has some highlight features in the outdoor cameras, or specifically the bullet cameras. So like I said, most of them are 4K these days. They have these little LED rings on the front of them. I know it sounds a bit like a gimmick, but if you're walking past someone's house and that LED ring starts triggering based on motion, it's a good way to indicate to people that, hey, we have cameras. So they'll go, what is that movement? And they'll go, this building has cameras, and it looks like it's recording me. So I kind of love it. We have a couple of successful use cases where that's deterred people from attempting to do stuff. And they have a IR expander as well. So if you want to have more IR light, obviously for low light conditions, it's a very good device for that. In terms of the cameras, so there's the main ranges. We are now switched over to the G5 range predominantly. The G4 range is still around. They are a little bit more expensive, but because they use metal enclosures as opposed to polycarbonate on these G5 series. And then the AI variants obviously support more AI features, stuff like license plate recognition, etc. as well. They even have a DSLR version, which literally takes a DSLR lens from a camera and bolts it onto the front of it. I know it sounds crazy, and the pricing is crazy, but the purpose of that is to look at stuff that's happening very far away. Stuff that I can think of is like, if you're looking at smelters in mines, you want to get as much distance from that smelter as you can while still getting a good view, because a lot of heat comes off of that. So the DSLR is a very good option for that. You can mount it very far away. Again, everything on tech specs. There's a couple more models. I'm not going to show all of them. And then a very new addition is the turret cameras that Ubiquiti have just added on. So typically more ceiling mounted, typically in the inside of a building, typically mounted in a corner or something like that. These are very neat based on their form factor. The one thing I will just call out here is The images are a lie. The cameras look massive in these images. The small one, the new one they introduced, I forget its name, I'll see it in a second. It's tiny. Like, it's almost comically small. I thought it was a toy when they brought it out. It looks fake. It's a tiny, tiny little form factor device, which is really nice for indoor environments where you don't want something intrusive. So that's the one I was referring to. Again, it looks big, but it's a tiny device. I would say it's about the size of my thumb, but that's probably the height of it. It's tiny, very small device. So most of them have IR built in, very compact form factor, very good for general business use. So the G5 Dome Ultra, that's the one I was referring to. Tiny little appliance, or tiny little device, really good for indoor use. Also the G5 variants of them, and they do have a AI camera as well, so AI 360 camera as well. So if you want to get a nice overview of an area and how people are moving through that area, that is a good device for it. And you can pan tilt zoom around. Just a word of caution on cameras like this, all of them feature the same thing. It's very good for bold spot detection. So it's always above you, so you can always see your bold spot when you're walking around, just as an FYI. I'm struggling with that, so. Another.
It's Joe. Joe doesn't
Ubiquiti also have some unique cameras that don't fit into the traditional verticals. A big thing that they're focusing on is their theta range, which is more meant for retail and like hotel chains and stuff like that. The big benefit with this, it's got a tiny footprint. So it's not quite a pinhole camera. It's a little bit bigger than that. But the idea is that the lens and the body are two separate things. So the lens just connects back to the body. All the processing, etc., happens on the body, and the lens just screws into the ceiling or wherever you want to mount it. And it is an extremely compact form factor. This is the form factor. You can see how tiny that is and how easy it is to hide that away. If you're a high-end retail space, you don't want big cameras in the corner scaring away your customers. So this is a very good way to do it. And by detaching the body from the lens, you don't have to worry about if this is a very small gap in the ceiling. You don't have to worry about how the hell am I going to squeeze this into the ceiling. You can have a fair amount of distance. I think it's up to about 20 meters. Speaking under correction, please check the TechSpecs website, but a fair amount of distance from the lens to the actual body of the camera. It's a very, very impressive thing for that. So it's actually USB-C, but it is a proprietary version of USB-C. So no, actually you get the cable with the camera, and it tends to be more than long enough. You can buy the third-party, the expandable ones as well, and they are not much money. I think they're like in the region of $50 or something like that for a really long cable.
We've seen like 15, 20 meter ones go for like $300-400.
Yeah, no, that would be 3/4 or 90% of the price of the device. So no, it's not that. You can also buy these ceiling mount speakers. So if you want to have audio in the building to say, hey, don't touch that or something like that. What are you doing in this room? This is a good appliance for that as well. Also, small form factor, nice and easy to hide away. They are, yes?
Is that speaker hooked up to the same controller?
It's hooked up to the same controller. That's it. So the lenses, a couple of different flavors. So if you want something that's a 360 camera to give you a nice overview, they've got that option. If you want something for longer distance viewing to focus on a specific point, they can do that as well. And they even have stuff that's made for more low light applications, more wide angle use, depends on your use case. What's nice is you can buy the body separate from the lenses. So you can go, okay, I'm going to go for this body and I need the pro wide angle lens, and you can buy that separately. So you can also buy it as a package if you wish, but most people will buy them separately. Obviously they do PCZs as well, pan tilt zoom cameras. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. They only have one model here right now, another one to be added on shortly. They are quite costly, but all PTZ cameras are really good for parking spaces and large open areas where you want to focus on a specific point.
Do they follow movement, or what do they
So
just do things?
At the moment, yes or no. So it depends on whether you have the early access firmware or not. I believe it's currently still in early access to do that. But they are working to expand the patrolling capabilities, auto tracking capabilities, etc. on this. So especially with the new version of the camera they're introducing, they have to have that functionality. So they are going to probably be announcing it shortly. Good question. They also have the little flex cameras and the instant cameras, which I think is perfect for most home use and even a lot of business use. I'm going to be the first person to say they're not necessarily the most pretty form factor on earth, especially the flex, but they are very versatile. You can mount them to a pole, you can mount them to a wall, you can mount them to a ceiling, you can mount them to pretty much anything, very flexible. The instant, which is this one, is my personal favorite. I use this at home. Reason I love it is it's powered by USB-C and connects via Wi-Fi. Easy. And I don't know what kind of magic Ubiquiti do, but it doesn't necessarily impact your Wi-Fi that much. I mean, I have 3 cameras set up and my Wi-Fi, I don't notice any difference in performance on my Wi-Fi, which is really strange behavior because normally you would see a big impact from that. So that's the instant.
And they're IP rated.
They are IP rated. So I think they are rated up to, let's see, outdoor ready. So I think it's IP, yeah. So I think it's up to IP65 or something like that, or IP66. So they are very good devices.
You guys going to release a solar panel for it?
Ubiquiti is not big in the solar game, to be honest. With the ease of USB-C, I think they kind of rely on you to have your own solar setup if you want to use solar for that. So it's nice and low powered at least. I mean, it's 5 volt, 1 amp, so it's nice and easy. Yeah. So they also do 2-way audio. I love that. If the wife has her phone on silent and she's not looking at it, and I want to quickly let her know, hey, I want to call you, I can just open up the app and go, hey, I'm trying to phone you, and it sends the audio across and I can hear what she's saying as well. And it's actually decent audio. It's not just gimmicky. Again, specs are there, all on the Ubiquiti website as well. Last 3 slides that I have. Ubiquiti also have their doorbell version. This is kind of a competitor to Ring, but this is more focused towards business use. So it's not like the normal ones that you would see from Ring. And essentially they are meant to go on the front of the building. Someone can walk up to it, press the button, it will alert you on the mobile app, and you can say, hello, please leave the package at the door, or whatever you want. It even has a camera facing downwards as well, so you can see if someone's left a package or something similar. It's very cool. Although please note from that it is not an access device. In other words, you can't open a door from that. It is purely just to alert you that someone's at the door.
It does record.
It does record as well. So yes, it's part of the Protect range, and I'll actually go back slightly so I can show it again. So that the camera that's up there and the camera that's at the bottom there, both of those record. So you can see as someone's walking up to the door.
I just saw that in the 2-wire system. So
Yes.
you can hook that up to your existing Wheatland, whatever Honeywell now. Honeywell doorbells.
Yes, yeah, that's it. So if you, a lot of the use cases for that is where you already have a 2 wires running for your normal doorbell. So instead of, the analog doorbells that you would press to trigger it and it rings something inside, that's exactly the use case for it. So you can use the same power supply.
But do you still need to connect it to the network via cable? Or?
It's done via Wi-Fi, so you can just connect wirelessly to it. Makes it nice and easy. The PoE version you would connect, so there's 2 versions, one with 2 wire and the other one with PoE. The PoE version, the expectation is that you connect that via PoE and network cable. Okay. One thing I just want to call out here as well is this all integrates back to UID, which is Ubiquiti's identity management, which means that you can also, when you're enrolling employees, set up their access for the cameras as well. So if you have, let's say, for example, the warehouse manager starting at the company, and you want to give them access to all the cameras in the warehouse, you create their credentials ahead of time, you email that out to them, and they open up the mobile app, tap on the cameras button, and once they've tapped on that, they can see only the cameras in the warehouse. That is a very cool tool to use. You can do that before that person even starts there. And it ties into the Wi-Fi, the door access, everything else as well. So you basically just need one app as an employee to do everything. All of this, as always with Ubiquiti, license-free. There's no licenses. You don't need to buy licenses for the amount of cameras that you have. It is all very secure as well, massive focus on security. If you're buying the controller or the cloud gateway, obviously it's got the firewall functionality and stuff as well, so it even protects it from the network side. Single pane of glass, super easy to manage. It's easy SD-WAN as well. If you want to link multiple sites together, you can do that very easily. And obviously there's comprehensive support available from Ubiquiti and from Leader's side as well. And then in terms of the security, so this slide's actually slightly outdated. Ubiquiti have a ton of new security features added on to protect your network side. So for a business looking to get NVRs or looking to get the cloud gateway specifically, you can make sure that the network side is protected as well. Okay. Just want to, as a last point, mention that with the controller or the NVRs, it's typically a either or scenario, but you can do both. For businesses, you can get the controller as the starting point and then later on add NVRs. Or if you want to and not use the controller, you can do that as well. You can just buy NVRs, slot them straight into the business, and that's it. You can have something else controlling the network, etc. That's pretty much the entire Ubiquiti Protect product stack. It's nice and easy. It's a handful of SKUs, easy to manage, and you don't have to worry about all the complicated licensing and features, etc. It's very, very easy. Any questions? I like the questions. Nothing else?
That speaker to go with the smaller cameras.
Yes.
Is that a paintable grill on it, or is it a mesh grill?
It's a mesh grill,
Okay.
unfortunately. So Ubiquiti have taken a lot of feedback from resellers in terms of painting cameras, painting access points, and painting stuff. So expect to see more stuff that is paintable from them in the future. They've just launched their Pro Max Wi-Fi 7 access points that you can actually paint. And they're trying to do that with a lot more stuff as well.
Cool. Got one customer. He's after a black turret camera.
A black turret camera.
Yeah. I'm
So-
guessing there's nothing yet.
Not yet. So we normally take all the stock that we can get in Ubiquiti. They will typically base the camera models off the run rate that they see. So they'll go, okay, cool. People are buying 30% black cameras or 30% white cameras, and then the rest as the other color. So they'll stock more of the other color, which sells the most. And we'll always just buy whatever they can give us. So if it becomes available, we'll have it. But at the moment, I think it's still quite limited. We're waiting for our first batch to arrive. So
I have another question for this customer.
Sure.
He was worried about the 2K resolution versus 4K resolution,
Yeah.
but the processing behind it is just so much smoother, as I can tell.
yes.
And that's the trade-off.
Yep.
So
There's definitely, so I mean, to process 4K video footage, the camera has to work a lot harder. So both of those cameras should be a pretty smooth experience. There is also a slight difference in terms of frame rate between some of these cameras. Some of them will be at full 30 frames per second. Some of them will be at 24 frames per second. So you'll have a relatively perceivable difference in terms of smoothness of the video footage as well. But it depends. Horses for courses, depends on what you want to go for. Rather have more video footage that's clear, or rather have more frames to pick up stuff, but less clear. Trade-off.
definitely more.
Yeah, that's it. Awesome. Anything else? That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.